Let's keep going, because there's so much more hiding in that grocery cart that deserves a second look. And I want to go even deeper into a few of these categories before we open up some brand new ones you probably haven't thought twice about. So let's circle back to cooking oil first, because there's a layer of nuance I skipped. And it has to do with a scandal that rocked the food industry a few years back involving avocado oil. Where independent lab testing found that a huge percentage of avocado oil sold on store shelves was either heavily diluted with cheaper oils like soybean or sunflower, or wasn't avocado oil at all, meaning you could be paying a premium price for a product that's mostly filler, and the only way to protect yourself is looking for oils that carry a third-party seal of authenticity. Something like a verified extra virgin certification from an independent lab, rather than just trusting the word avocado printed in bold letters on the front. And this same diluting trick happens with olive oil constantly, where studies out of certain university food science departments have found that a shocking number of imported olive oils labeled extra virgin fail basic purity tests, meaning they've either been cut with lower grade oils, treated with heat during processing, which strips away the beneficial compounds, or mislabeled entirely to command a higher price point. So if you want the real thing, you're looking for a harvest date, not just a best by date, because true high quality olive oil is a perishable product, just like fresh fruit. And if there's no harvest date printed anywhere on that bottle, that's often your first red flag that you're dealing with a blend rather than a single origin pressing. And one more thing worth mentioning here is the ongoing debate around seed oils in general. Canola, soybean, corn, sunflower. Because there's been a massive wave of public concern about the refining process these oils go through, involving high heat, extraction and chemical solvents. And while the research is still evolving, and I'm not here to tell you these oils are dangerous in moderation, what I will say is that the ultra-processed version, sitting in a plastic jug for pennies on the dollar, is a fundamentally different product than a cold-pressed, minimally processed version. And your body can often tell the difference, even if your wallet initially can't. Moving back to bread for a moment, because I also want to address the sourdough trend specifically, since sourdough has developed this halo of being automatically healthier. But here's the catch. Real traditional sourdough uses a long fermentation process with a wild yeast starter that actually breaks down gluten and phytic acid, making it easier to digest and slightly better for blood sugar response. But the sourdough sold at most major grocery chains skips that entire slow fermentation process, using conventional commercial yeast with just a splash of vinegar or citric acid added afterward to fake that tangy flavor, meaning you're buying regular white bread with a sourdough costume on. So if you're paying extra for sourdough, look for a short ingredient list. Ideally, just flour, water, salt, and a starter culture. And if you see added sugar, preservatives, or a dozen unpronounceable stabilizers, that loaf hasn't earned the name, honestly. And gluten-free bread deserves a mention too, because so many people assume gluten-free automatically means healthier, when in reality, gluten-free bread often relies on refined rice flour, potato starch ghee, and added gums to mimic the texture that gluten would normally provide, meaning the fiber content plummets and the glycemic impact can actually be higher than regular whole wheat bread. So unless you have an actual medical reason to avoid gluten, this swap isn't the health upgrade the packaging implies. Now let's go even further into bottled water, because I want to talk about the flavored and enhanced water category specifically. The electrolyte waters, the alkaline waters, the vitamin-infused waters that have exploded in popularity. And the marketing here leans heavily on vague wellness language, alkaline water, claiming to balance your body's pH, which sounds compelling until you remember that your stomach acid alone makes that entire premise scientifically meaningless, since your body regulates its internal pH through your kidneys and lungs, regardless of what you drink. And vitamin waters often smuggle in as much sugar as a can of soda, while using the word vitamin to create a health halo strong enough that shoppers don't flip the can around to check. So the pattern from the first video holds true again here. The fancier and more specific the health claim on the front, the more likely there's something on the ingredient panel working against you. And let's revisit cereal one more time too, because granola deserves its own call out, since granola has this reputation as a wholesome, crunchy health food staple. But a huge portion of store-bought granola is essentially oats and clusters held together with honey, brown sugar, and oil, baked until it reaches dessert-level calorie density. And a half-cup serving, which is smaller than most people actually pour into their bowl, can carry as much sugar and fat as a couple of cookies. So if granola is a staple in your pantry, the fix isn't cutting it out entirely. It's checking the serving size math and looking for versions where nuts, seeds, and oats outrank sugar and oil on the ingredient list. Now let's expand into some categories we haven't touched yet, starting with deli meat. Because this is one of the most quietly concerning aisles in the entire store, since deli meats are frequently loaded with sodium nitrate and sodium nitrite as preservatives, compounds that have been linked in various studies to increased health risks when consumed frequently over long periods. And the twist here is that plenty of brands now sell versions labeled uncured or no nitrates added. But if you flip the package over, you'll often see celery powder or celery extract listed as an ingredient. And here's the part almost nobody knows. Celery powder is naturally high in nitrates, meaning the finished product can contain a similar or sometimes even higher nitrate level than the traditionally cured version, just with a cleaner sounding label. So uncured doesn't always mean what shoppers assume it means. And the better move, if deli meat is a regular part of your diet, is looking for brands that specify nitrate levels directly, or opting for freshly roasted meat from the deli counter that you slice yourself. Next, let's talk about canned soup and canned vegetables. Because sodium content in canned soup can be staggering, sometimes exceeding half your daily recommended intake in a single serving. In canned goods, historically used a resin lining containing BPA to prevent the metal can from corroding. And while many manufacturers have shifted to BPA-free linings in response to consumer pressure, the replacement chemicals used in some of those new linings haven't been studied nearly as extensively. So the shift away from BPA isn't necessarily the complete win it's marketed as, and if you're leaning on canned vegetables for convenience, rinsing them thoroughly underwater before cooking can reduce the added sodium significantly, sometimes by close to half, which is a simple trick that costs you nothing and takes 10 seconds at the sink. Now let's talk about plant-based milk, because the almond milk, oat milk, soy milk aisle has become enormous, and the marketing leans heavily on words like natural and simple. But here's a detail that surprises people every time. A lot of almond milk contains only about 2% actual almonds, with the rest being water, thickeners like Gelen gum, and often added sugar even in versions labeled original rather than vanilla. And the protein content tells the real story here, since almond milk typically offers close to nothing in terms of protein per serving, while soy milk is the only plant-based option that comes reasonably close to matching the protein profile of dairy milk. So if you're replacing dairy for nutritional reasons and protein matters to you, soy milk or a pea protein-based option is doing far more work than almond or oat milk, which are honestly closer to flavored water with a creamy texture. Let's talk about peanut butter next, because this is a category where the difference between products sitting 3 inches apart on the same shelf can be massive, since traditional peanut butter should really contain just peanuts and maybe a pinch of salt. But many of the most popular national brands add hydrogenated oils to prevent natural separation, along with several grams of added sugar per serving, turning what should be a simple protein and healthy fat source into something closer to a dessert spread. And the giveaway again is that ingredient list. If peanuts aren't the only or overwhelmingly first ingredient, you're paying peanut butter prices for a product that's been engineered for shelf stability and sweetness rather than nutrition. Now, chocolate deserves a mention too, because cacao percentage claims on dark chocolate packaging can be genuinely misleading, since a bar can say 70% cacao while still packing significant added sugar into that remaining 30%. And the ethical sourcing side of chocolate is worth knowing about as well, because cocoa supply chains have documented histories of labor concerns in certain growing regions, which is why certifications like fair trade or direct trade sourcing labels actually carry meaningful weight in this specific category. Unlike some of the vaguer wellness terms we've discussed elsewhere, let's touch on spices too, because this might be the most overlooked fraud category in the entire grocery store, as in-spice adulteration is a documented global issue, where products labeled as pure paprika, turmeric, or oregano have been found in various testing programs to be cut with fillers, starch, or even non-food grade dyes to enhance color and bulk up weight. And buying whole spices and grinding them yourself, or sticking with well-established brands that publish sourcing information, is the most reliable way to avoid this particular trap. And tea is worth a quick mention as well, since certain teabag brands have shown pesticide residue levels in independent testing that raised concern, particularly with non-organic options. And loose-leaf tea from a transparent supplier tends to offer more consistency and traceability than bagged tea from unclear origins. Now let's revisit yogurt one more time, because there's a specific claim worth unpacking. The probiotic promise, since yogurt companies love putting words like contains live and active cultures front and center. But the truth is that pasteurization after culturing, processing methods, and storage conditions can kill off a significant portion of those beneficial bacteria before the container ever reaches your fridge, meaning the probiotic benefit you're paying extra for might be far smaller than advertised. And looking for a specific colony forming unit count listed on the label, rather than just a vague live cultures claim, is the only way to actually gauge whether you're getting a meaningful dose. And let's go deeper on eggs. One more time too, because omega-3 enriched eggs deserve a mention, since Heinz, fed a diet supplemented with flaxseed, do produce eggs with immeasurably higher omega-3 content. And this is actually one of the rare cases where the premium claim holds up under scrutiny, unlike the cage-free confusion we covered early. are. So omega-3 eggs from a reputable brand can be a legitimately good use of a few extra dollars if that fatty acid profile matters to you. Now here's a broader pattern worth addressing before we wrap up, and it's the psychology behind why these tricks work so consistently across every single aisle. Because grocery stores and food manufacturers understand something fundamental about human decision-making, which is that we are all operating under time pressure and decision fatigue while shopping, meaning we rely heavily on quick visual and linguistic cues rather than careful analysis. And words like natural, wholesome, farm fresh, and artisanal are specifically chosen because they trigger an emotional shortcut in your brain, a mental image of a rustic farm or a simple kitchen, even when the actual product was manufactured in a massive industrial facility using processes that look nothing like that image.